our porter for the Haggis here, Pussy Nancy. And she's the landlady of the old inn in Turbleton, Fife. Many a wonderful night I've had in that house. Fair fire on his sonsie face, great chieftain of the puddin' race, aboon the bar you tuck your place, pinch, stripe with firm, weel are ye worthy of a grace as lang's my arm. The groaning trencher there ye fill, your hurdies like the distant hill, your pen would help to mend the mill in time of need, while through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. His knife, see rustic labour dicht, and cut ye up, we're ready slecht, trench in your gushing entrails brecht, like any ditch, and then, what a glorious sight, warm, reeking rich. Then, horn for horn, they stretch and strive, de'll take the hindmost on the drive, till all their wheels swelled kites believe are bent like drums. And all good men must like to rive, bethink it comes. Is there that o'er his French ragout, or olio that would stop a sew of fricassee, would make her spew, with perfect scudder, looks down with sneering, scornful view, such a dinner. Poor devil, see him or his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindle shanked, a good whiplash, his knee, a nit, through blood, or failed to dash, oh, how unfit. But, mark the rustic, Haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his dread clap in his wally knee a blade. He'll make it whistle, and legs and arms and heads he'll stand, like taps of thistle. Ye powers wha mak mankind your care, and dish them out their bill of fare, all Scotland once, nay, skink and wear the jobs in luggies, but if you wish, a grateful prayer, ye her a Haggis. Ladies and gentlemen, to the Haggis.
That is known as addressing the Haggis. I'd like to welcome everyone here today. It's a special day, as you know, and it's so nice to see you all decked out in little bits of tartan. And without further ado, I would like to ask Miggs to please come and introduce Mr. Armour, and he's going to speak about Robbie Burns, the immortal memory.
Well, I think you hardly need an introduction. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Tim Armour, our piper, a dresser of the Haggis, and an expert on Robbie Burns. Tim is a 7th generation Scot, with a little French and Irish thrown into the mix, like most of us, I guess. He grew up in Woodbridge, Ontario, and his parents belonged to a dance group called the Gay Gordon's Scottish Dance Society. And on Saturday nights, they hosted each other at their homes, rolled up the rugs, put on the Scottish music of the pipes and accordions, and they danced. And this is where Tim got his first introduction to this wonderful music. And at the age of 6, he was offered the chance to take up an instrument. And of course, he wanted to play the pipes. But unfortunately, in the Woodbridge area, there were no instructors of the pipes. So he went on to play the accordion instead. At the age of 20, as a self-professed hippie, he took off to New York City for the weekend. He must have really loved New York, because he didn't come back for 5 years. During that time, he met and married a Scottish-born lass from Greenock, who happened to be working at the British consulate. And as I say, 5 years later, they moved back to Canada and settled in Creemore. 8 years ago, at the age of 50, he revisited his dream to play the pipes. And he's now a member of the Bangorm Highlanders. I can also attest to the fact that Tim's a very fine carpenter. 21 years ago, when our first grandchildren were arriving on the scene, I was concerned that they would be falling down the open railings and stairwells of our log house. Tim designed and built the most beautiful, intricate sliding railings with hidden latches and gates that you needed an engineering degree to figure out how to open. Needless to say, we didn't lose any grandchildren. So please welcome Tim Armour as he shares with us his knowledge of Robbie Burns.
Dear ladies and more ladies. And the odd gentleman, though I must confess I'm not so odd. I am in fact a completely normal male in my tastes and appetites. The reason we have gathered here today is an enjoyable and yet serious business. My reason for being here today is to pay tribute to the immortal memory of that greatest of poets, Robbie Burns. As you can guess, I've been immersed in his timeless writings for days on end in preparation for this occasion. One might ask why we would bother to pay such tribute 252 years after the birth and 215 years after the death of a man who was, by the world's standards, a failure in life. He lived life hard and died so young, with scarce a penny to his name, yet every year to ere they come. Yes, hundreds come to Robbie's hame. In 1978, I made my first pilgrimage to Ayr to see the Burns cottage. It was in September of that year, and being past the height of the tourist season, they had reduced costs by cutting back to a skeleton staff, which was one grandmotherly sort of lady selling tickets in the gatehouse and no one else to be seen anywhere. The brochures, what ones were left this late in the season, were free for the taking, though information contained therein was sketchy at best. The weather that day was perfect, as far as I was concerned. A soggy, sodden Scottish sky shared all it held with we earthbound creatures. I felt such a kinship with Tam O'Shanter as I nursed from a flask of scotch so fine that its warmth imparted displaced all trace of the cold dampness which had been trying to gain access to my bones. With my one-year-old son in my arms and my Scottish wife beside me, I wandered through the grounds and gardens in a state of euphoria. I was really in the home of my hero, first encountered in a grade 8 anthology of verse, where his words to a louse caught my attention and kept it ever since. Ah, would some power the giftie gie us to see ourselves as others see us. It would from many a blunder free us, and foolish notion, what airs in dress and gait would lee us, and even devotion. I stooped through the low doorway in the whitewashed walls and entered the thick thatched roof to the smoke-soaked air of that holy place. I stood in the living room / kitchen / bedroom of that two-room structure, the second room being the byre for the livestock, just on the other side of a cracked and creaky wooden door. A velvet rope across the room divided public space from restricted area, and there on the far wall was the Holy of Holies, the Sanctum Sanctorum, Robbie's bed, in a tiny alcove formed deep in the thick construction. As deft as a rugby handoff, I passed my son to my wife, stepped over the rope, and in 3 short steps I'd gained access to Robbie's bed, laid my head in the space his head had once occupied, and reached through the years with my mind to wish him my thanks and love. All the while my wife hissed in her loudest whisper, "Get out of there, you flaming Egypt!" Never mind, it had to be done. But why did I, and do I, feel such devotion to a man who was, by this world's standards, a failure? Because he was anything but a failure. He succeeded in his mission to put into words and print onto paper his thoughts, his wants, his yearnings, his peeves, his hates, his likes and loves, his passions and his pitfalls, his nobility and his futility. He wrote in the dialect of the common man of his time and place, and was thereby a voice of his people. And with only a little bit of perseverance in becoming familiar with his dialect, not unlike learning to enjoy Shakespeare, he becomes a voice for all people. His stories are timeless in their humor and insight. We think now on the long Scots miles, the mosses, waters, slops, and stiles that lie between us and our hame, where sits our sullen, sulky dame, gathering her brows like the gathering storm, and nursing her wrath to keep it warm. Who among us hasn't stayed too long at the pub a while our mate sat at home stewing? I have. In some places, the tradition has developed that a Burns supper is a strictly male gathering. Well, I know for a fact that Robbie himself would have declined such an invitation. He was a man who loved to be in the presence of the lassies, as much for their own where was I now? Oh, I've gone the wrong way. Yeah, he was a man who loved to be in the presence of the lassies as much for their own lovely attributes as for the fact that his male counterparts became better persons in their company. Robbie loved the lassies as a group, and most especially he loved them one-on-one. I hae been blithe wi' comrades dear, I hae been merry drinking, I hae been joyful gathering gear, I hae been happy thinking. But the pleasures there I saw, though 3 times doubled fairly, that happy night was worth them all, among the rigs of barley. The sky was blue, the wind was still, the moon was shining clearly. I sat her doon with a right good will among the rigs of barley. I kent her heart was my ain. I loved her most sincerely. I kissed her o'er and o'er again among the rigs of barley. Here is lechery as human as it gets. Robbie knew great sadness in his life as well, the same of all of us, as all of us do at certain times. Oppressed with grief, oppressed with care, a burden more than I can bear, I set me down and sigh. O life, thou art a galling load, along a road and weary road, to wretches such as I. Dim backward as I cast my view, what sickening scenes appear, what sorrows yet may pierce me through. Too justly I may fear, still caring, despairing, must be my bitter doom. My woes here shall close near, but with the closing tomb. This is despair as deep as the grave. We are no fool, we are not that fool, but just a wee drappie in our eye, the cock may craw, the day may daw, and I will tust the barley bree. This is hedonism, pure and unbridled. And yet in this man is embodied great spirituality and trust in God's love.
Where with intention I have erred, no other plea I have, but thou art good, as goodness still delighteth to forgive. And kindness to our fellow man must begin with a heartfelt concern for all living things, even a mouse. We sleekit cower and timorous beastie, what a panic's in thy breastie. Thou needna start away sae hasty with bicker and brattle. I would be loath to rin and chase thee with murder and prattle. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. Tied together with this love of nature is a fierce love of his country, Caledonia. A lambkin in peace, but a lion in war, the pride of her kindred, the heroine grew. Her grandsire, old Odin, triumphantly swore, whoe'er shall provoke, the encounter shall rue. And by a love of freedom, by oppression's woes and pains, by your sons in servile chains, we will drain our dearest veins, but they shall be free. And in that there's an acknowledgement of the price to be paid for freedom by one generation on behalf of the next. I'm of a generation that benefited from the great sacrifice of my parents' generation in the Second World War, and have never had to face that difficult cross in my life. I am so thankful. And at that, my notes come to an end. I can only continue to say that Robbie Burns' poetry will live forever, because if we take the time to get onto his lingo, he is so funny, so human, so real in every day and age, no matter what station in life we're in. Robbie Burns speaks to all of us, and we can only carry on offering our thanks and continue to enjoy his work. If you don't own a copy of Robbie Burns' poetry, go out and find one, buy one, and then take out your pencil and look up everything you don't understand in the glossary, pencil it in the margins, so that after you've gone through about 50 pages, it all makes sense to you, and you can really get into the full-time enjoyment of it. And it will carry on for generations to come. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
The pipes that got the Scottish blood a-flowing and the feet a-dancing. The haggis that was piped in and addressed so wonderfully. And the immortal memory to Robbie Burns. But remember, hands off Pussy Nancy.
Can he help myself?
A wonderful party.